today to have Brittany Del Toro on our radio station, and this is Return to Consciousness live with April and Nicole, or live with Nicole and April, one and the same. A little bit backwards. I'm very connected today, so I'm really excited for the show. I've been able to take a week of really self-reflection and move through the energies of the earth, and I've had some amazing clients that have taught me a lot of stuff this week, and really come to an understanding of the new earth energies that are moving through. And before we go into the guests, I just want to share the message that I got when I woke up this morning and asked, how can I best show up for you? How can I best show up for the people that are seeking advice from me and seeking healing from me? And as you know, I give complete gratitude
KDXI,
and love to the Creator that has gifted me the abilities to assist you. However, I was asking this, and I got on Facebook and I saw this meme.
Okay,
and
here's your
meme
weekend
said,
temperature
power
forecast
is only
for
created
July
to
13th
destroy.
and
Love
July
is all you
14th.
need to create.
For the greater
And
Dixie
it
area
really
today,
made
high
me
is
think,
105
that's
and
interesting
76.
because
And
I
for Sunday,
share when
high is
I work with people
106
and they
and
are
lows
moving out
76.
their energies,
For
which we're
Zion
going to be
National
talking
Park
about
today,
today
101
is
and
energy
71.
healing
And Sunday,
natural
102
healing and
and
stuff like
70.
that. However,
right here,
when I
Village today,
really sat with
64
this, and
and
I'm like,
50. And
when
for
I'm
Sunday,
teaching,
highs
we're moving
67
out
and lows
disharmonies,
50.
we're moving out
The Radio
depression,
Dixie
we're
and
moving
Radio
out
St. George.
information that
This
does not
is
serve
Dennis
you any
Matheson.
longer, and we're pulling back
Next
in your
time
power.
on the New York
So
Philharmonic this
it
week,
created me to
we
ask
honor
and
the
sit
memory of
with
the orchestra's dear
spirit,
friend,
and I
Alexander
came
Kaplan.
to the
This is
understanding
Alec
as I'm
Baldwin.
witnessing
Please join
me
me for a
healing my
special
own
program
body through
featuring
spirit and the
several
divine white
concert
light.
favorites
And I
from Vaughan
remember very
Williams and Ravel
vividly
to
the
Debussy and
chakras,
Rachmaninoff.
which is
It's
the
Kaplan's
system that
playlist
moves through your body.
on
There's
the
7
New York
chakra
Philharmonic
centers,
this
and
week.
when aligned, your body then
The New
has
York
innate ability
Philharmonic,
or remembers the innate
Wednesdays
ability
from
of
11
healing
till 1
itself and
on
immaculate
Radio
love
St. George
and so on.
100.3.
And so when I sat with that,
Hi, this is Tyler from Hash House A Go-Go, and we've decided to
sat with
sponsor the
client after
DSU
client
radio
after
program.
client,
At Hash House A
revisiting
Go-Go, we
their
offer unique
progress.
dishes, generous
And
portions,
every
and our light and
one
twisted
of
menu
them
with smaller
had
portions.
to
Recently,
open
Hash
their
House
heart
A
space,
Go-Go was
of
voted
course.
best in Southern
That
Utah
they
for breakfast and brunch,
got the
serving Indiana
opportunity
home-style
to
food
call
with
back
a
their
West Coast
power
twist.
in their solar
Hash House A
plexus.
Go-Go by the Red
So
Cliffs
I
Mall, putting the
believe that
fun
the
back
solar
into food.
plexus, or I trust that
Kengar
the
St.
solar
George Ford
plexus
Lincoln is a
your
proud
power
supporter
point.
of the
Energy
sports
is power.
broadcasts you hear on Radio Dixie.
There's not a negative
91.3.
behind
Kengar
power,
St.
because
George
if
Ford
you think
Lincoln
that, that's what
carries
you're
a variety
created
of new
in.
and used vehicles at
So you're
145 West
attracting
Hilton
that
Drive in
that's
St.
a negative
George
space, and
and
it's
St.
not.
George Ford.
So when you're looking at this,
Radio
okay,
Dixie
I am a
91.3
powerful
wishes to say
being,
thank you to
not
Kengar
with an
St.
ego,
George Ford Lincoln
but
for their
with
generous
a divine
sponsorship of the
purpose here on
DSU sports
earth,
broadcasting you
and
hear
this
on Radio Dixie
power
91.3.
is what navigates here through this earth
The Washington
energy.
Community Center
Now the
announces
heart is very
drop-in
important,
pickleball.
of course,
Monday
and
through
you have
Saturday,
this heart
bring your own
that
equipment and
connects
have
us to
fun.
everybody.
Go to
This
washingtoncity.org
green,
for specific
beautiful,
closures or
beautiful
schedule
heart
changes.
connection
Or
that-
give us a
that
call at
electrically, magnetically
435-656-6360 for information. It's
your
time for
pulse
you to play
connects to Mother
pickleball.
Earth and resonates at that exact frequency. That is
When
powerful.
people feel something wonderful,
Combination of the
when they
two
really
is what
want to
created
share
me
their
to walk
happiness,
again.
they
So
sing.
when I seen that
Join the
meme,
Mormon
I thought
Tabernacle
that
Choir each
it
week
was
as they sing the world's
interesting, but
most
then I thought it also
uplifting and
takes
joyful
away
music.
a piece of
In
who you
music
are.
and the
So I
spoken
really
word.
wanted to address
You may
that
forget
today.
the songs, but
As,
you'll remember the
as you know,
feeling of
I
happiness.
never
Music and the
come
spoken
from an
word,
argument
brought
of
to you by
point of view. I
Kengar
come
St.
from
George
my
Ford
lens,
Lincoln,
what I see,
Sundays
and my
at 7 and
experiences.
1 on Radio
And
St.
I
George
trust that
100.3.
when your heart space is open, you govern it,
You're
you
listening
move it,
to
you,
Radio St.
you get
George
excited about life.
at
This driving
100.3
force is like
FM.
your movement through this 3D energy, and then when that is activated with your heart.
Good morning
solar
and
plexus
welcome to
and your heart,
KDXI St.
your
George,
higher heart
Radio
chakra
St. George at
opens.
100.3
Now
FM.
you
It's
are
our pleasure to
compassionate,
present to you The
have
Garden
return to
Show
consciousness,
with
and you're
Artie
able
and
to
Woody.
move through Earth's
It's time to
energy
find
as
out,
an observer.
how does your garden grow?
Observer is where
Here are
you
your
can
hosts for The
be
Garden
in
Show,
Joy is
Artie
the
and
unconditional
Woody.
love and emotion.
Oh
and
my
that is
goodness,
really
it's time
where
for another
we
garden
want to
show
exist
on
at.
Radio St. George 100.3,
when I saw that,
starring
it just brought up
Woody.
these,
Hey, Artie, how are you, buddy?
awarenesses
I'm doing really good.
of,
I haven't seen you much this
really,
week.
when you,
You know,
read things,
you've been busy this
posts
last
have
week,
power.
have you?
I've been
Posts
down
and
in
things have an
Sprinkler
energetic
Health, so-
imprint that
nuclear hell, huh?
Share with
Yeah.
you, good negative or positive.
This time last
really
week,
good or bad.
you mentioned.
And so then I'm like, you know
that
what? We have these energetic designs. We have these.
You didn't know exactly what the
available
problem was.
and open
Well,
to us all the
in
time.
the manifold, I had to leak.
And your body only
the
being
pipe
able to
that's
hold so
leaking
much
is always
energy,
the one
positive
that's
or
under
negative.
three other pipes.
When we're feeding ourselves with
So I have
doubts,
an
with
excavation in
ifs,
my
with
backyard
all
that
this
you could put
information
a
that
teacher's desk in.
you know what?
really?
Some of it isn't accurate, and it
now I
doesn't fit
gotta
for you. It
fill
might
that
fit for
back
another
up
person
and
because we
hide
live
it
in
so
this
you
world
can't tell it's
designed
there.
by
Oh my
somebody
goodness.
I
else,
got them actually working again.
trying
so,
to fit our design in it.
onward and
and the
upward.
only
We're
way to
gonna
do that
not
is take back your
feel bad
power,
about that anymore.
open up that
Sprinkler
heart
issues.
space,
Yeah,
and
I only spent
evolve
about
to a
$1,000
conscious
to get
being
it fixed.
of
Oh,
love. And
It's
then
just
joy
unbelievable.
happens.
So
and
when
that
did you
is
finally
your every day. You're
pinpoint
moving
that,
through life in a
the
joyful
issue,
space.
or discover the issue?
It's being
It's-
contagious.
I've been working on that for
And
about
the
a week and a
openness
half.
really
and
means that you clear
I
your
finally
energies,
got it
because if you're
fixed
or sense your
yesterday.
body,
Oh
and
my
that's the
gosh.
fact that your body
You
can
know,
only hold
where
so
it
much
actually
energy.
holds when
When
turn
you're
the water
filling your
on.
body up with the positive energy
anyway.
and
I
releasing the
keep
stuff that doesn't
hitting
serve
my
you
corner
anymore, you're
sprinkler
getting
with
those
my
open
car.
windows
Yes.
all the time.
I put a
And
little
you're growing, and then you get to move them outside of
flag
your
that I
body,
got
and
from
you
Lowe's,
come to
to
an
indicate that
understanding
there's
of
something there.
And you
And
still
a
hit it
harmony
again.
Oh my
that
gosh,
exists
I
in
don't
Have you
know
the
thought
universe.
about putting your sister's
The universe
car
exists
on it?
in you.
Oh, that's
So
probably
now
a
you
good
are
idea.
Yeah,
you
then
are
you'd have to
living
hit her
that
car.
that
That's
consciousness
true.
love, that expansion.
Well, maybe I
And,
should stop parking on my
some of you may
lawn.
not know what I'm
Yeah.
I think
talking about,
that's the
but
issue.
you definitely feel some
All
kind
right,
of
folks, it's the
shift
Fun
in your
and Garden
body,
Show
some
starring
heaviness,
Woody, and I'm
some
the producer,
want. You
Artie. We are
you're
here
seeking
every
more.
Saturday
You're
morning
seeking
at 8
more.
o'clock.
And I'm going to share that
Broadcasting
it
live
starts
on
with
the airwaves
self-love.
of Radio
So
St.
it's
George
that soulfulness in
100.3.
your
We
heart
want to thank Sean
that-
Denifin for
that
letting us
you get to connect
do
to. It's
this
all within you. You get to connect
fantastic
there. You get to be
program.
there. You get to
Award-winning.
Award-winning
really
program, and
explore
you can
expand
participate
your
in
internal
our
being.
award-winning
And
program
it's
by
gonna show
calling
up
or
in the
texting us
physical,
at
as it always does. And listen to your body right now.
435-879-4100, or they
Listen
can log
to what
on
it's telling you,
to
these little aches, the little
Fun
pains.
and gardening.
Like, ask where it's
Fun and
coming
garden?
from, and you, when you move into that conscious awareness and move out
You've heard of the
what
golden
doesn't serve
EIB
you
network
anymore,
that
and
Rush
open your
has
Oh,
mind
yeah.
to
microphone?
new things.
Well, we're the
New things. There's this knowing. There's
iron.
intelligence and information out there
golden
that
iron?
is
Iron
amazing when you
microphone
open
award.
yourself up to it, and the learned beliefs, the
We have a
programming,
couple
all the
levels
stuff
to go
starts to
up
melt away,
to
and
get
you
to the gold
expand in
microphone
great
award.
ways.
That's
And it can
awesome.
be
Now
as
on
quick or as slow as you
funandgarden.com,
choose to.
it will give you
So
links of
that
where you
was
can
like
find
one
the
of the
show on
biggest
Facebook and also on
messages that just
YouTube.
flew
Yep.
through me
So that's
today,
kinda
and
cool.
I knew that I needed
We're all
to
set
share
up
that,
there,
and I know
we
that
actually
that we all work on
try to
different
go in there
consciousness
and-
levels,
and
as we should, to
down the
be here in
subject that we're
harmony
gonna,
and cooperation.
talk
because
about the next week,
that's
so you'll
alchemy
know.
of healing.
Okay, well,
So,
speaking about subjects, lay it on us. What are we
April
going
Betty,
to
she has
talk about
her
today?
hands
We're gonna
healing
talk
hearts,
mostly
and she
about
moves
cooking
through,
today, but there's
through
a couple
spaces
of-
with a compassionate heart. She
quick
brings
things
people
I want
together.
to touch on as far as
she
gardening and
is very
and, I got
very
my,
gifted in the communication
Birds
through the
and
heart
Blossoms,
space. So when people don't want to share,
magazine
won't
this
want to
week,
use
and it had
words,
some interesting
she always
articles in
seems
that
to
made
have
me
that
start
energetic
thinking,
pull and
now that the
comfort
weather's
and,
fairly warm,
and then
bit of
Brittany
mild,
has. I know you work with the body and you work with.
there's
my
some
body and
issues
spirit,
that can
but
happen with
I
your
don't
gardens.
know
and,
exactly
and
all
the
of
article
it.
that
So
they
that's why we
have,
have you here today, so we
is
can bring in
talking about
another
the
element
Phoenix
of
area.
amazingness.
But St.
Do
George
you want to
is
share
just
anything
about
first,
the
April,
same as
before
far
we move
as
into
Yeah.
the heat and so
Brittany?
on.
No, I'm
And it
excited
talks
to hear
about
more
how
about
to
Brittany
avoid,
because I don't know
some of
exactly
the
what she does
problems
either.
where your plants go into shock.
No, I'm grateful to be here.
And that's
thank you for
literally
sharing
what
your
it is
message.
shock.
You're welcome.
You know, like a person gets in an accident, they go into shock.
So I
well,
am
a
a
plant will
holistic
go into
wellness
shock.
coach.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been in
And the hot
school
weather,
for the past 2.5 years.
you know,
to
have you ever
become a
noticed that
certified
about
nutritionist.
The middle of September
And
when it finally starts to cool
Not only
down,
do I work
Yeah,
with diet, but I
that-
also work
that
with
the
herbs.
plants all of a
and
sudden start to.
a lot of it
We got a
is
call?
We do. Hold-
when I was going
Hey,
to
caller,
the
you're
school.
on the air. It's Radio St. George
I learned
100.3.
that
Hi, good morning. This is your lawn
It was-
care lady.
Oh,
it was
awesome.
a lot of there was only one
You have a
disease and they
voiceover
call
on
it
top of your
constipation.
recording.
When you think of constipation,
Yeah.
I know, and no one wants to to talk about it, but when you think of the word constipation in itself,
What woman is it?
it just means that something is stuck.
Oh.
There's only one disease,
so there's
whether you
two
have
voices going on.
congenital heart failure,
A woman's voice on
diabetes,
I have
anything
no
like
idea.
that.
On the radio or on
It's
Facebook?
because
Facebook.
of constipation, whether
Oh,
it's
okay. Well,
emotional,
let's see. Well,
physical.
thanks for letting. Oh, I know what I
spirit.
did. Okay, every week I mess up, and I know what I did now. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. Well, thank you so much for your help.
You're welcome. I'm going to go get my binoculars and sit on out by your lawn. Bye.
It's our lawn chair lady, everybody.
The famous lawn chair lady.
All right, so our streaming feed has been fixed. Last week I didn't push the correct buttons, and this week I
Pushed too many.
pushed one too many. So looks like it's fixed now. So
Good deal. Anyway, so the plants can go into shock when it gets warm, and then
Okay.
when it cools back down, you'll notice all of a sudden they start looking better and doing better, and that's because the hot temperatures are gone. But it points out that one of the ways you can avoid that, well, there's two things that it points out. If you plant native plants in your garden, they do a lot better in the weather because they're native to the area. So they're used to the soil and to the temperatures and so on. And down here, native plants would be things like you were saying, Artie, prickly pears and yuccas and guava and those kind of desert type things. And there's trees and so on. And you can talk to people at the nursery, maybe not at the big box stores, they wouldn't know, but at like Star. One of the ones that I have in my yard that does really well no matter what are the desert orchid trees.
desert orchids.
Yeah,
Orchids.
orchid trees, and they have a little orchid on them all summer, and they're about the size of a silver dollar.
And what color are they?
Well, there's
Or the
white,
flowers, or
there's
the-
white, there's pink, there's different colors.
Huh.
And there was a fellow that had a nursery down in Beaver Dam for years, and he worked with them and bred them and tried to change them from a wild to a domestic tree, and they're quite popular now.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So and then the other issue that they point out, if your yard starts to go into shock, and you have to cut back on your water, like maybe it's $1 million a month or something. It says, cut back on your annuals and let them die.
Really?
Well, perennials are a long-term investment, and they cost more, and they're going to be back next year. An annual is going to be done at the end of the season
that's
anyway.
true. Yeah.
So if you're going to sacrifice one or the other, sacrifice the annual. One of the things that's really important that will help is to do whatever it takes to get the water right on the plant and not sprinkle the whole driveway and gravel and all those kind of things. The more you can get it right to the base of the plant, then the less water you use, and the better for the plant. So those are just a couple of things that I wanted to talk about as far as plants go. Now we're going to do fun stuff and talk about cooking.
Cooking again,
Oh,
huh?
I love cooking.
Wait, this is the fun and garden show.
I
So
know.
this is the fun part? Oh,
This is the fun part.
it's the fun part.
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked about it last week, but there's some things we didn't get to cover. So this week we're going to cover those things. Squash, pink banana squash. Do you know what they are?
No.
They're those huge long ones. They're 2 or 3 feet long.
Okay.
In the store, and when they put them on sale in the produce department, they cut them up in pieces. They're so big.
Really?
And they sell them by the piece.
Okay. Yeah.
They're kind of an orangish pink. They're kind of pink on the outside and orange on the inside. And they are the best tasting squash that grows as far as I'm concerned.
Wow. How do you cook that one?
Well, the easiest way to cook them is to take that piece of squash and maybe cut it in half or into quarters, put it in a microwave dish, put a little water in the bottom, put some butter on the top of the squash, the flat part, salt and pepper, cover it with a saran wrap kind of thing, and microwave it for about 15 to 18 minutes. and it is wonderful.
Huh.
It's wonderful.
That's cool.
It's good. And the only place you can find seeds to grow that is Ballards out in Hurricane. They actually, no one else sells them because I've been to all the places looking. And Ballards, they collect their own seeds and keep their own stock. And some of these old seeds that go way back, they have them.
Oh, that's neat.
So it's called pink banana squash.
And are those difficult to grow here in southern Utah?
No, they do really, really well. They do really well. The thing about squash, all kinds of squash, they have the big leaf, and plants that have a big leaf like that, they have to have a certain amount of moisture because the leaves lose so much moisture because they're so big. And any of the squashes, like a hot day, if you go outside and they need water, their leaves will be wilted really bad.
They're
drooping.
Drooping, yeah.
Yeah. And you know that you've got to increase your water or pick up the hose and turn it on and water them an extra time or lose them, because if they go droopy like that for a couple of days, they're gone.
Now, how long would you water for?
I water my squash once a day for about 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of a flood irrigation. It's not a sprinkler. But I also go out in the afternoon when it's hot and make sure they're okay.
Now, speaking of which, is it effective or ineffective to water during the day? I mean, when's the best time to water?
The watering during the day is ineffective for one reason, and that is evaporation.
So it's not going to do any good.
Well, it's going to do some good, but if you sprinkle or even water with the hose, flood irrigate, when it's 100 and something degrees, a portion of it's going to evaporate. It's not going to get down into it. And if it does get down, it's going to dry out quicker than if the best time to water is from about, 4 in the morning to about 10.
Okay.
In the morning.
But if I'm going to run a hose or do a special spot or a certain area of my lawn, probably at night, right? About 8:30, 8 o'clock?
No, not at night.
Okay.
You don't want to water at night. You'll get the mildew.
Oh, that's right. Wake up early and take care of it then.
Yeah. One of the old-fashioned things that people don't use too much that I know about is a soaker hose. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
They roll out and they're kind of flat.
Oh, that's right. I've seen those,
You hook them to your hose, and then they have just a little stream of water that shoots out about every 6 inches. And you can put those in a garden, any kind of garden, and turn it on just enough that the little streams that come out are about a foot high.
Sure.
And it'll do really well because it's doing it slowly, and the soil will get wet, and then here comes some more water, and it soaks in. They do really well on the vegetable garden or like a flower garden that maybe it's a tough shape for you to water with a sprinkler, or it's next to a driveway, and you're going to get water wasted on the driveway. Put a soaker hose down there and turn it on. Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah, that's a good thing, huh?
Yeah.
So anyway, we've got pink banana squash, and they're wonderful, and they are a winter squash. Now, the difference between a summer and a winter squash, because, I deal with seeds, so I have people question me all the time. Summer squash, there's like zucchini and crookneck and that. They're just squash that come in the summer, and you can't store them for a long time. They may be able to store for 2 or 3 weeks in a cool place like a pantry.
Okay.
But then they start to, go bad. Winter squash will store all winter, and the pioneers used to put them down in a cellar. They would dig a cellar in their yard somewhere, and they would have stairs to go down, and they'd take an old door and put a door in there, and they'd cover the roof of it with timbers and put the dirt back on, and it would stay 65 degrees in there year round.
Yeah.
And they would there's certain kinds of squash, like the pink banana squash, the Hubbard, and there's about 7 or 8 of them that if you put them in an environment like that, a cool, dry environment, they'll keep for 6 months.
No kidding.
Yeah. In fact, the pioneers used to go down and they had a pink banana squash. They'd cut a piece off and
store it in the
and then take it in the house to cook it and leave the rest of it sitting there.
Oh.
And it would keep all winter. And so it's not like, well, this is a squash that doesn't ripen till winter. That's not what it means. It means that you can keep it for a long time.
Wow.
And like my house, I don't have a basement and I don't have an earthen cellar out in the garage. But I have a pantry that's fairly cool. And if you keep stuff down close to the floor where it's ceramic tile, it's cooler down there than any other place in the house.
Sure.
So that's where we keep our winter squash.
Oh, that's
so you know idea. you can keep it, and then Thanksgiving you can bring some out and use it, and yeah.
Great
Good stuff. Most squashes, if you can bake them or microwave them. Microwaving squash, some things I don't care for in the microwave because they taste a lot different.
Sure.
But squash is just as good in the microwave as if you bake it in the oven.
Probably obviously
It's
faster.
Yeah. So, you want a little clear wrap on top of it, butter, salt, and pepper, and just a little layer of water about 1/8 of an inch thick in the bottom just to keep moisture so it doesn't dry out.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Now we're going to talk next about soups and stews.
Soups and stews.
Soups and stews.
Awesome.
I can't even say that, let alone do it. Do you like soups and stews?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The difference between a soup and a stew is what?
The amount of vegetables that you put in the pot.
No, the difference is a soup can be a stew if you thicken it.
Oh.
Okay. So really there's
cornstarch.
Yeah, there's not too much difference. It's just if you thicken it up at the end.
Okay.
But we do quite a bit of homemade soups, and that's what we're talking about here. And let's talk about the kind of vegetables that you could put in a soup.
Okay.
The first one that comes to mind are carrots. Carrots do really well. Carrots have a sweet flavor to them. So if you put them in a soup or a stew and let them cook, they're going to make the soup or stew a little bit sweeter, which is good.
Now, carrots are part of the Holy Trinity. Carrots, celery, and onions.
Yeah.
I guess you want the Holy Trinity in your stew or soup.
Yeah. I do a lot of onions. I like onions.
Oh, you have to have onions.
You put onions in there. If you put them at the start, by the time your soup's done, most of the onions are gone. They've cooked apart.
Yeah.
But if you wait till like a half hour before you're going to eat and put them in there, then they're still there. So, but they definitely flavor a soup. What was the other one you said?
Celery.
Celery is something that a lot of people, they'll eat it, like a Thanksgiving with some cheese on or something or some dip, but they don't use it in cooking as much anymore. And I think part of the reason is because celery, if you buy it and you put it down in your fridge, if you go over a week or so, it starts to go bad.
It's mush.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'll buy celery salt or celery seed and put just a little sprinkle of that in things because it's a flavor that you notice is missing, but you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of flavors. You think, I wonder why that tastes different. It's celery. The old cooks, the pioneer cooks, always used celery. Always did. So let's see. We've had, the other thing, tomatoes, of course.
Love tomatoes.
Oh, yeah. And usually when I do a soup, I'm putting a canned tomato in because it's already been stewed and it's ready to go. And I can't put too many tomatoes in. I love them.
Now, do you bottle or can tomatoes yourself?
You bet.
So you grow them fresh in your garden.
We do what's called stewed tomatoes.
Okay.
and you kind of scald them, and you take the peels off the outside.
Okay.
And then you put them in the cooker, big pot, and you put some green pepper in with them and some onions, and you cook it all for, I don't know, it seems like a couple hours,
Sure.
but I'm not sure. I'd have to ask my more intelligent side, my lady partner.
Now, how about sun-dried tomatoes?
Well,
How do you make those?
any of those, dehydrated projects, you just have to hydrate them and they come back.
Oh, the freeze dryer?
Yeah,
Okay.
but the tomatoes you put in there, the nice thing about doing your own is that if you do them with the onions and the peppers, is when you make the soup, that's all done for you.
Oh, that's true. That's
So
a
we
great
put
idea.
a quart of those in, and then I like to put cabbage in. I like cabbage. In a soup, I don't want a great big huge glob of cabbage. So when I do it in a soup, I dice it up into smaller bits.
Okay.
But it gives a taste to soup that nothing else does.
They also have those mini cabbages as well, right?
Yeah, and they a lot of times if you look, you can find a bottle of spices like onions. You have a minced onion that's little particles of onions. I'm not sure if they do for cabbage or not, but so there's one thing though that comes with cabbage that you have to be aware of. When you put cabbage in anything, it has a reaction of intestinal gas for the person that eats it.
Right on.
Yeah. So a little gas treatment that you buy at Walmart is a good thing. So you don't have to fumigate your house the next day. So, gas, cabbage will bring some gas on, just like beans do.
Beans.
Yeah, the yin and the yang. And if I'm doing kind of a miscellaneous soup, a lot of times I'll put some peas or corn, even some broccoli, little Florentines of broccoli, and that gives it a little different taste too. Broccoli does it a little different taste. Then when it's all done, if you want to thicken it, it becomes a stew. I forgot. We want to have some hamburger or some chicken or some steak or some roast or meat in there somewhere.
Well, if you're a vegetarian like myself.
Then you don't, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I like to do, when I was a kid, my mother, when she would do stew, she always put dumplings on them.
Oh.
They're wonderful. I love dumplings.
You mean biscuits?
Well, yeah, but they cook them on top of the stew.
Okay.
And when they do it that way, they're called dumplings. So you go to the store and you get some Bisquick mix.
Okay.
And then on the back of the box, you'll see a recipe for dumplings. And you just basically take the Bisquick and put it in some cold water and whisk it, and mix it up. And then about 10 or 15 minutes before you want to eat, you take this dough, basically, and you take a glob of it that maybe a little larger than you can put on a tablespoon, and you drop it on top of the soup, and you drop it all the way around in a pattern, then put a lid on and let it steam, and it turns into a bread on top of the stew.
Sounds great.
It is. And, then when you serve it, you've got dumplings and the stew, and the dumplings will be kind of, I don't know quite how to put it, they're kind of wet on the bottom, but they're dry in the middle and dry on top.
Yeah.
And then you can open them up, put a little butter and salt and pepper on them, and they're wonderful.
Sounds good. Well, we're going to go to our break.
Okay.
After the break, you have, what are we going to be talking about? You have 5 seconds to tell us.
We're going to talk about cooking beans.
Cooking beans.
Yeah.
It's the Fun and Garden Show on Radio St. George 100.3 with Woody and Artie.
Since he was 12 years old, Stevie Wonder has
Garden Show with Artie and Woody.
Rule 1 in broadcasting.
Turn on the mic.
Absolutely. I always forget. How embarrassing.
It is.
All right, folks. It's the Fun and Garden Show exclusively on Radio St. George 100.3 with Woody and Artie. Actually, you're the star of the show. I'm just producing and messing up left and right.
They have tried to hire us away to NBC, but Good Morning America.
We rejected their.
We did. They
their contract,
you know,
their offer.
$1 million a year isn't enough.
Now, folks, if you want to participate with us, of course, you can call or text us, and we'd always love to hear from you. It's 435-879-4100, or you can log on to
funandgarden.com.
Awesome. And what's available to our listeners there at funandgarden.com?
Almost everything that's legal.
Oh, okay. So links to the YouTube show, to the Facebook show.
Yeah, and to Harvey the tortoise.
Awesome. Log on and look at Harvey.
Yeah, he's been talking to me lately. And
wow.
He wears a Speedo this time of year.
So the stone turtle has been talking to you. I think we need
wearing a Speedo, yeah.
We need to get you a...
Oh, I love Harvey. He's a good man.
If he's been talking to you, we need to put a straitjacket on you.
On me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Take you to the funny farm.
So that's okay. Hey, me and Harvey, we don't hurt anybody. We just sit out there and talk.
Now, Woody, we've been talking about making stews and soups from vegetables grown from the garden.
Right. Now we're going to talk about beans.
Beans.
Beans are I like most bean soups. And you know what? Beans are grown. You have to grow beans. There's lima beans. There's string beans. There's navy beans. There's lentils. There's split peas. And you make a soup out of all those. Most of them are, to preserve them, they dry them, and they dry them rock hard. So before you cook them, you have to think about it the day before, because you've got to take them and put them in some water and let them soak overnight to get the water back into the bean. One of the little tricks that we've learned over the years is that when you do that, if you take a couple of tablespoons of baking soda and stir into the water, it actually takes away some of the gas effect.
I was just about to ask about that.
Yeah, it takes away some of that. Not all of it, but some of it. It takes that away when you soak them. Then in the morning, you want to drain them completely and then refill with new clean water to do your cooking.
Okay.
And depending on how hard the bean is, you pretty well cook them all day. As an example, lima beans, they're wonderful. I love lima beans. About the only other thing that we put in there besides our spices is we put some onions in there.
Yeah.
And then ham.
And ham, too. Oh, yeah, I know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So lima beans and ham.
Yeah, if we do not a roast, but a ham for like Easter, we'll save the bone and put it in the freezer, and then we put it in with the limas when they're cooking, and then take it out at the end. But the bone is the part that has all the flavor in it. In things like that.
Now, my brother-in-law did the same thing with kind of a white bean.
Yeah.
Let's see. Are those navies?
Yeah.
Navy beans?
There's, I'm not quite sure where one's a lentil and one's a navy, but yeah, they're a smaller bean.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're the same bean if you buy a Campbell's bean and bacon soup. They're in there.
Okay.
And that's a pretty good one. You can put, now the same rules apply with the chili bean, which is a red kidney bean, but you soak it overnight. You put some of the baking soda in there, and then you drain it in the morning, then put it on to cook. But with chili, you put much more into it than onions.
Okay.
With chili, you're going to put some meat of some sort. Instead of ham, you're going to probably put hamburger.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do it with a roast.
Yeah.
And I cube the roast up into little 1/4-inch squares and put in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of tomatoes, a lot of onions, and even if you can get away with it, depending on a person's taste, I like to put a little green pepper in there.
Okay.
But, chili is one of those things that's defined by the person that makes it. I've seen chili where people don't consider it chili unless they have some pasta in it.
Okay.
Or they don't consider it chili unless they have some corn niblets in it.
Huh.
Or it's kind of a family tradition of what you put in it. And I think when they say, I'm going to make a chili, they're talking about it can be almost anything that you decide you want to put in it.
Sure.
So I don't know. I don't think you could put, like a duck with feathers in it. That wouldn't be good. Or a cat. You can't put a cat in it.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, you
Cat
could. Sorry, I had to bring that up.
I have one too many cats.
Well, and that's what we were going to do.
Now, with chili, a lot of people put in, celery grown from the garden.
That's a good thing for chili, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe if you can get away with it, maybe carrots as well. But bring a little sweeter taste. But
Yeah, and then of course the spices you put in chili are different than soup. Mm-hmm. We end up usually buying the chili mixes.
Sure.
Because if you go with straight chili pepper, it's a one-dimensional taste.
Yeah. Where
the mixes are a little better. They kind of take the gun out of your hand and they make that decision for you. And but chili, not this time of year, people don't make it too often because it's kind of a cold weather thing.
Mm-hmm.
But a good chili, I love it. And we usually make a big roaster full, and then we'll take part of it and freeze it.
Yeah.
And then have it whenever we want to,
Great idea.
thaw it out. So, yeah, chili's good stuff.
Well, that's a great idea for meals, ready-made meals. A lot of people are doing that these days because they're busy. You portion them out, and you freeze them. So that's a great idea.
One of the subjects I want to talk about was shopping at the store. I've noticed I have shopped for years. My wife and I always go together,
mm-hmm.
and it's interesting to notice in the new stores like the new Smiths and Harmon's and these different stores, how the things they sell have changed. And one of the changes that's happened is there's a lot more stuff that's pre-prepared.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've seen that as well.
And I think that the young people like to go in and just buy, a frozen dinner that's pre-prepared or a package that you just add this to or that to and heat it, or even to the point of going to the deli and buying it where you don't do anything but take it home and eat it.
Mm-hmm.
But like with cakes and stuff, we felt a little guilty about buying a cake mix because when I grew up, we did cakes from scratch.
Oh, yeah.
But now they buy the cake. They don't mess around with the mix very much.
Sure.
So I think the way people shop, now the trick is, here's the trick to it, is you're going to buy pre-prepared. A lot of times you can't tell what's in that. You buy maybe a piece of ribs, mm-hmm. and it's all spiced up, and you cook it and it tastes good, but you don't know what they put on that, really.
Probably lots of preservatives and a lot of other garbage that you don't need.
MSG. Do you know what MSG is?
I love MSG.
Monosodium glutamate.
Yep. When I go to restaurants, especially Chinese restaurants, I ask for extra MSG.
Do you?
Yep.
It really does make stuff taste good. I have a little bit of if I eat a lot of it, if I go to a place that puts it on, and there's a couple of restaurants I could name that put it on, even though you don't know it, their food tastes really good. But I'll get a headache afterwards for a couple,
Really?
2 or 3 hours.
That's
Yeah,
weird.
and I don't know exactly why, but maybe I've got an anti-MSG head. But yeah, it's like buying stuff at a restaurant. You're not sure. It tastes good, but they might be back there loading it up with sugar, with
Tons of salt.
oils and salts and different things. So, I think that's why my wife and I, we consider it. We go out occasionally, but majority of our eating is done at home with stuff that we cook. At least you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And so, and one of the things is we have the celiac disease in our family, and I have a bunch of children and grandchildren that are have that disease where the wheat makes them sick.
Oh, okay.
And they have to eat food that doesn't have gluten in.
Okay.
And so there's got to be gluten-free. The stores have a section now, gluten-free section.
And those products are usually more expensive, unfortunately.
They are,
so.
because to get something to taste good without gluten, you have to go an extra step or two. So they are more expensive. You'll pay $4 or $5 for a loaf of bread, and it really is marginal on taste. But if you have that disease, and that disease comes from mostly Europe.
Oh, really?
People that have ancestors in England and the European nations there have more of that than other places. And so, as an example, when we go out to dinner, we have to really be careful if my daughter and her kids are with us, because we have to go to some place that she trusts to be gluten-free. So that's important, and that's an example. And she has it really, really bad. There's people that have a little bit of reaction to gluten, and then there's people that have a severe reaction. And hers is severe.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, she's in a house and somebody's making a cake in the kitchen, and you get, maybe when you start to whip it up, it gets a little flour in the air.
Sure.
You put her in the hospital.
That bad of a reaction.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
So in her house, there's plates, pans, knives and forks that are gluten-free, and there's regular.
Oh my goodness.
And she has to prepare stuff, and there's even a counter that they don't use gluten on.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's serious.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be life-threatening to some people.
Well, I stand corrected with my whole opinion about gluten-free.
Well, a lot of
foods.
people do it out of a fad to diet a certain
that's what
way.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was.
But it started out, it's actually a very serious disease.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Next thing I wanted to talk about is corned beef and cabbage.
Okay. Lay it on us.
Do you
Tell us
know
about
what
that.
corned beef is?
I think it's cured meat, isn't it? Or
It is. It's beef that's been corned.
okay. No, how do you corn it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
You've heard of salt pork. In the pioneer days, they'd have salt pork, and they'd take pork and they'd pack it in salt.
Now, why is that?
Well, it preserves it.
Okay.
And the salt would soak in. Well, the same thing's true with, you can do it with corn. And I'm not sure how it's done, but you can corn meat, and beef is the one that corns very well. And for years and years and years, all the corned beef came from Argentina. And the reason they did it was because the beef raised in Argentina was tough.
Oh, really?
And the corning made it more tender. And so it was like a cheap meat, and then you added some mustard to it and made a sandwich and so on. But the corned beef that you buy now is not really cheap anymore. It's $6 or $8 a pound,
Yeah.
and everybody does it on St. Patty's Day. And we do it at our house a couple of times a year.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and you take the piece of meat, roast or whatever it is, put it in the water. You put the juice that's in the package in there, and then it'll have a little package of spices.
Okay.
You cut that open and put it in, and then you boil it for 2 or 3 hours.
Now, when do you put fresh cabbage from your garden in?
Well, that's the thing. If you
stew.
put that in to begin with, by the time the meat's done, the cabbage will be gone.
Oh,
it
really?
overcooks it to death. It makes it into just, just a film in the water.
So the last few minutes, that's when you need to put it in?
About the last 20 minutes.
Okay.
And we also we take potatoes and peel them.
Oh.
And you know how you put potatoes in a roast on
Yeah.
Sunday? We do that with potatoes in the corned beef and cabbage.
That's a great idea.
And it really is neat. And then when we get it out and eat it, we mash the potato just with a fork and put some butter and salt and pepper on it. And it's really good. But the cabbage, I don't like cabbage that's cooked to the point that it's too soft.
Okay.
I want to be able to taste that it's softer than not cooked at all, but I don't want it cooked to death either.
Sense.
Yeah, corned beef and cabbage. Corned beef has a lot of fat in it, and that's why it's so tasteful, because the taste comes from fat in meat. And if you get meat that's too lean, it doesn't taste good because there's not enough fat in it.
Yeah.
That's where the flavor's contained. But when you're eating the corned beef, you have to be careful how you trim it, because it does have some layers of fat in there. So we want to trim it up. Now, do you know the difference? Now, these are tests, Artie, but you're doing really well this weekend. Do you know the difference between hot packing and cold packing when you preserve stuff?
Oh, gosh, I have no idea.
Well, I didn't either, and my wife has educated me, but we do a lot of, we put up things like chili sauce.
Okay.
And we hot pack it, and that means that you cook it until it's completely done, and then you take the bottle that you've sterilized and you put the hot mixture in the bottle and then seal it, and as it cools, it'll suck the seal down on the bottle.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that's hot packing.
Okay.
Cold packing is where you would put it in the bottle and then put the bottle in the hot water and let it boil within the bottle. And I tell you the truth, I've never done any cold packing, so I'm not sure what you would do that with.
What the difference is.
Yeah. But I know the hot packing is something we use a lot. And I'd like to talk a little bit about chili sauce that you can go to the store and buy at the mustard ketchup aisle. You can buy something called chili sauce. Not the same thing. Our recipe is a family recipe that's been handed down for
generations.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, 200 years.
So what's special about it?
And the recipe came from the southern part of the United States, because I have ancestors that came from Georgia and that area.
Okay.
And they came along through Texas and then come up to Utah, and they brought some of these recipes with them. And it's been a family tradition. And when we cook it, we'll cook like 20 quarts of it. And then during the winter, we'll have chili sauce on the table. And if you have a roast, you'll put the chili sauce on top of the roast.
Okay.
And it's a spicy, sweet salsa type of thing. And it's really good.
It's more of a condiment.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, my brother, he'll put them on scrambled eggs in the morning. He likes it that way. But it has tomatoes, it has green peppers, it has onions, it has pickling spices in, and you take all those things and you grind them up into through a food grinder, and put them in a pan, and you put the pickling spices in, and then you put things like brown sugar and
I was going to ask where the sweetness comes from.
Brown sugar and vinegar and these things, and then you get it already, and you cook it for like 5 hours.
That long, huh?
Yeah, you just, and it cooks down. As it cooks, it, you know how the moisture goes out. And when it's done, then you spoon it into these sterilized bottles and seal them. And it's wonderful. In fact, it's a really treasured recipe in our family, and I was thinking I'd do something really crazy like put it on our website.
Oh, I was about to say you should probably do that.
If somebody, the only thing is, you know, and here's an issue about family recipes. You get all done and you follow the recipe, and it doesn't taste like you thought it should, like the way Mother made it.
Sure.
Because at the end, your mother would season it to taste. At the very end, she'd say, "Oh, this needs a little celery salt, or this needs a little garlic, or this needs a little onion salt, or whatever." And that was the secret to making it, because she ate it from the time she was a little kid until, you know, and I have, and my family has, but there's a part at the end where you season to taste.
Well, my mother's secret recipe has always been lard.
Lard. That's a really healthy thing. A good
needs more lard.
Yeah,
scoop up another scoop of lard.
Yeah, a good tablespoonful of lard in the morning will get you going. So anyway, maybe we'll put that on the website. Woody's chili sauce recipe.
I'm interested in looking at it.
Yeah, and that'll be fun. So, let's see. So another thing I wanted to talk about is fresh versus canned.
Okay.
Now, in the old days, there was always, and when I say old days, you know, I'm talking about back in, 1900 and that type of thing, because I'm an awful old person. But
you're not that old. Come on.
105, that's not very old.
Young at heart.
Yeah. People had to can. They had to preserve. And they didn't have big freezers, and they didn't have the things that we have, the modern conveniences. They didn't have a store they could go to and get watermelon from Mexico in February.
Yeah.
Or grapes from Peru. So if you wanted to have those things, you had to preserve it. So in the summer, in July, August, September, you bought that stuff from the
markets,
yeah, and you took it home and you put it up, you preserved it, and that would maintain most of the taste, but you lose a little of the taste in the cooking. So one thing that I think everybody will agree on, if you go out and take a tomato out of your garden and go in and slice it on a piece of bread to make a sandwich, that's
the best thing ever.
That tastes good.
Best thing ever.
If you go to the store and buy a tomato and come home and slice it on a sandwich, you throw the sandwich away and eat the paper. I mean, it's terrible. They're just worthless. They are. And if you're not growing your own tomatoes, I recommend you go out to Fry's, because they have fresh tomatoes they sell during the summer.
Oh, wow. Okay, there's farmers market out there.
Yeah, out in Santa Clara. Go out there. I think they're $2 a pound, and they're great tomatoes. Wow. And they actually taste good. But when you think about things that you grow in your garden and you compare it to things you buy, even in the produce section of your Walmart or Albertsons or those places, radishes taste better if they're out of your garden. Squash tastes better. Carrots.
Absolutely.
Spinach, lettuce, tomatoes, almost everything.
Corn, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, corn.
Yeah. It's all better out of the garden. I mean, if you want to have a really good tossed salad, go out in the afternoon and take it out of the garden and put the stuff in the fridge and cool it down and then have it for dinner.
I like to sit in the middle of the garden to keep me cool and then just pick off the vegetables and dip it in ranch.
Yeah, I have I have that problem when I go out to pick tomatoes. A couple of them end up in my mouth. I have the little cherry tomatoes.
Oh, they're the best in the world.
Yeah, they're great for a salad. So anyway, there's a big difference. And so if you come to my house and you have a salad and then you go to the store and you want to buy some produce, don't expect it to taste like it did in my house.
All right, what do we have? 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay.
2 minutes.
Anyway,
left.
that's the when people say, why do you grow a garden?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big things, is that you want to taste that special good taste.
And the stews and soups that you're talking about, they taste 10 times better with with fresh vegetables
and
from the garden.
No preservatives.
So great ideas today.
No preservatives.
No MSG.
Yeah. And if you happen to be one of my neighbors or my friends and I have too many tomatoes and I bring them to you, you consider yourself really lucky.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, because I give some tomatoes away the other day. I have a friend that is a tomato hater.
Oh.
But his wife and family love the tomatoes.
Huh.
So I sneak them over to him when he's not home.
Well, that's nice of you.
And give her some tomatoes because she loves them.
Why is anyone hating tomatoes?
I don't know. I think he was from another planet. In a different galaxy, far, far away. All right. What are we going to talk about next week, Artie?
I have no idea. This has been the Fun and Garden Show on Radio St. George 100.3. Next week, what do you have anything planned at all?
I do. I have a whole bunch of literature here on how you cook and spice different vegetables.
Okay.
And little tricks you do to make them taste a little different.
Okay.
And maybe we'll do that. Plus, we'll do some stuff about, why don't we talk about sprinklers?
Sprinklers. You want to talk about sprinklers again?
Yeah, because I want to bring I'll bring the nightmares back. I've been having nightmares for 2 weeks. I wake up at 2 in the morning, I'm thinking of sprinklers. So this has been a good one, Artie. I think it's in the can just about.
It's in the can?
Yeah.
All right, folks, log on to funandgarden.com if you'd like to interact with us or look at our YouTube or Facebook feeds of the show.
We appreciate you tuning in.
And you can make comments on that site as well, funandgarden.com.
And ask questions.
Ask questions, absolutely.
Maybe read my recipe for chili sauce.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to do that.
All right, I'll put it on.
Okay. This has been the Fun and Garden Show on Radio St. George 100.3, broadcasting live from Dixie State University. We want to thank Sean Denovan for letting us do this show. And
we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Woody. Great show today, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.
KDXI.